This is George Rommel. I'm going to attempt to give an explanation as to why General Montgomery of the British Empire is vastly overrated. He essentially was conquered by the Third Reich of Germany, Rommel, who, by the way, abhorred the Holocaust and was part of various schemes to assassinate Hitler, which is what eventually led to Rommel being poisoned. But this has to do with Italy under Mussolini in World War II, landing troops down here. And that's what first got the English engaged in Africa, and they fell into trouble against the English. So then Germany sent Rommel with, 100 to 200,000 men. You'd have to look it up. I forget. And they landed here, and they quickly pushed the British, who controlled North Africa at the time, and the French. The French were over here, though. They landed here, and within a matter of weeks and months, they had pushed the British under Montgomery all the way to the gates of Cairo. And the only reason why he didn't completely conquer the British Empire is because Hitler, who had taken high command of the German Wehrmacht, German military, insisted on, against his general's best advice, launching a campaign, Operation Barbarossa, against Russia in 1941. That consumed a lot of resources and manpower from Germany that could have been sent to Rommel. Because by the time Rommel got stopped, he could only move his tanks 5 miles an hour per day, whereas before he was moving them dozens of miles a day across the desert. Hitler invaded the USSR with 5 million troops, 3 million of which were German, 2 million were allies. Finland, they didn't like Russia. Had those 3 million, had that been postponed, and he didn't stab Stalin in the back, had Germany reinforced Rommel with those 3 million troops, even half of that, 1.5 million. And given the petrol, the food, the supplies, the ammunition, the oil that Rommel needed, Montgomery would have easily been conquered, and the Arabs would have heralded the Germans as heroes, because they viewed the British Empire as being their imperialistic overlords who they did not like. And once the British under Montgomery, who was overrated and defeated because this entire time he's receiving supplies, tens of thousands of English troops, hundreds of thousands of troops, tens of thousands of pieces of artillery, plenty of food, ammunition, plenty of gasoline. The Germans failed to seize the island of Malta, so any supplies that they did send, even after they launched their operation against Russia, were usually sunk by the British. The Enigma code had also been cracked by Great Britain, which also did not help things in the Mediterranean. Had Rommel been resupplied and Operation Barbarossa postponed, Rommel and the Third Reich would have conquered North Africa and kicked Montgomery and the British army out. They just didn't conquer Malta, and that was their downfall. Had they conquered this, they would have been greeted as liberators. The Nazis did not like the Jews. The Arabs at the time, and still, 2018, do not like the Jews. The Germans could have moved up, this is counterfactual, into the Caucasus regions of southern Russia, where Russia has its oil bases, in Stalingrad also. And then at the same time, now this may be in a counterfactual scenario, this may have been in 1943, let's say, Germany would have been poised to do this. At the same time, Germany attacks Russia's west flank. At the same time, they're attacking Russia's southern flank. That would have quickly knocked Russia out. But again, Hitler went against his general's advice, and he went ahead and squandered his resources against the Soviet Union, which, as we know, ultimately backfired on him. So the battle for North Africa was also the first time the Americans were introduced. The United States landed in Operation Torch. They had some French resistance under Vichy, but most of them, they just fired some shots and then surrendered. Operation Torch met up with the British, and it all culminated in a town that Rommel was trapped in, because he was not being properly supplied, and he ended up being ultimately defeated, and he was brought back to Europe. He was heralded as a hero because of his exploits. That's when he found out about the Holocaust and what they were doing, and he was disgusted. So that is why Montgomery is overrated. Had he not been able to be resupplied like he was, and had Rommel been able to be resupplied unlike he was, the British Empire would have fallen throughout here in what was then known as Palestine. And Russia would have fallen ultimately. 1943, 1944, which would have stalled were given greater time to any kind of invasion effort from Great Britain into France, which was in 1944, June 6, Normandy D-Day. But it was a very complicated war on different fronts. The Western front, Mussolini got overthrown, so we invaded here with Montgomery again. General Patton, who was introduced in Operation Torch, and Montgomery were competitors, and General Patton consistently outmatched Rommel. General Patton consistently outdid General Montgomery, much to his chagrin. And they came up into Italy, so there was the Southern Front, Western Front, Southern Front, Eastern Front, and a lot of people don't know, but the United States also landed troops here shortly after D-Day. That's a brief synopsis as to why General Montgomery, who I praise in heaven, everyone's in heaven, why he is not the great general that you'll see on TV as he's portrayed. The victors write history.